Hi there, my name is Professor Catherine Woods and I'm Chair of the International Charter Renewal Committee, set up as part of the International Health Promoting Campuses Conference. It was lovely to welcome you all, so many of you, to Limerick for this truly inspiring conference, to be able to share with you our beautiful campus and to make such progress in relation to renewing the whole agenda of health promoting campuses. Thank you also to those of you unable to make it in person but who joined us online. To provide an overview of what I'm going to present, I'm going to recap on the Charter Renewal Committee purpose, provide an overview of the consultation process and timeline, a summary of the feedback received during the conference, describe what changes were made, and outline the next steps and, importantly, how you can help ensure we get this over the line. The Charter Renewal Committee was set up over 18 months ago to take responsibility for charter development and activation processes prior, during and following the 2025 International Health Promoting Campuses Conference, 10 years after Okanagan Charter and 20 years after the Edmonton Charter. The infographic on your slide at the moment you'll have seen during the conference or on the website, and it really explains the consultation process and timeline, making sure or trying to reflect the comprehensive approach that was undertaken to ensure accessibility, diversity, inclusion in relation to the consultation process. Beginning with ethical approval, moving through virtual feedback via surveys, in-depth interviews and focus groups, online Padlets and so on, through to really analysing that data and sharing with a very broad group the very first draft of the renewal document in May 2025, and that went through several iterations, bringing draft 3 to the conference and displaying that in the charter writing room in the conference and inviting feedback from the delegates in person, but also from those of you that were unable to attend in person online. Here's a few examples of the charter writing room over the very few busy days in the University of Limerick, and this led to draft 4 of the renewal document. You can see it on the boards, and people give us feedback via writing stickies on different lines or adding in post-its, providing feedback online via the comments, or going to Leah and chatting with Leah, and she would draw pictures and ideas. In actual fact, over the 4 days of the conference, 370 delegates visited the room, providing 237 comments via sticky notes. Online, the Padlet was viewed 493 times and 29 comments were provided. You can see 2 examples of the comments here, one saying, "Many thanks to the planners for including a virtual means of contributing to the Charter for those of us who were unable to join in person, and for every," and this is more specific in relation to lines 323 to 324, "for every how, it would be great to have at least one real-world example." As well as that, there were multiple focused discussions by members of the Charter Renewal Committee, the local organising committee and invited guests over the 4 days of the conference. And this culminated into the advanced draft of the Limerick Framework for Action being endorsed and signed by delegates on the final day of the conference. And you can see some of the examples there. So this brings us now to where we are with the consultation process and the timeline, noting the end date of December 2025. So since the conclusion of the conference and right up until today, it's the 5th of August, we've worked through all of the feedback that we've received, and what we've done is as follows. So during the conference, 2 independent consultants facilitated discussions in the writing room and noted decisions made by the writing committee. They also compiled a log of all the comments left by the delegates during the conference. The Padlet comments were added to this log, and then the UL writing team went through and read all of these comments and conducted a thematic analysis and used this feedback to improve draft 4. So draft 4 was then sent to our Higher Education Authority and the Health Services Executive in Ireland, and they provided feedback. We went back to the independent consultants with this, and we said, bearing in mind all the discussions and everything you heard during the conference, do you believe that this version now reflects all of that feedback appropriately? They agreed. We took on board their suggestions, and then developed draft 5, and this is what we're circulating to you now for finalisation. Just to provide you with a brief example of some of the feedback that came back through during the conference. One was that the document name, appearance and structure, for example, the document identity or name needed to be changed. That was a thematic theme that came through. Provide various formats for different audiences, i.e. maybe for the president of a university versus who is leading the health promoting campuses agenda in the institution. Document presentation needs updating, document content needs to be condensed and in some instances clearer. A second theme that came out was enhance global comprehension. So edit the glossary of terms for a more global audience and make the document more globally applicable where possible. A third theme that came out was to ensure the document is relevant. In other words, strengthen the connection to the Okanagan Charter, ensure the document is timeless. Loads of positive comments were received, and hone in and strengthen its application to the higher education setting. And the final theme was update details in the contents, and this included update wording in terms of, say, for example, plain English, and put more detail in on certain topics. And just to note that we are in the process of developing for a lay audience a plain English version. So please note that your feedback doesn't really have to refer to that, because we are taking on board advice in relation to how to generate a plain English version. So some examples of key points. The first one was a lot of the feedback questioned the need for a new charter and the difficulties and challenges presented by replacing the Okanagan Charter. So the decision was to change the identity of the document to the Limerick Framework for Action to avoid potential confusion. A second one was to request a change in the order of planet, place and people, proposed to people, place and planet. The decision, however, was made to remain as planet, place and people, and that text is now included. There is text included in the version 5 to explain that this really aligns with the current agendas and current knowledge. Other feedback was to remove the hyphen in well-being. The decision was made to keep the hyphen in. The hyphen remains in well-being to align with World Health Organization guidance, Geneva Charter for Wellbeing and so on. And finally, spell out SDGs. So the phrase Sustainable Development Goals is spelled out in full. So it's over to you now, guys. What we would like you to do using the template provided is, one, if you could read version 5 and complete a final check for any inaccuracies and report any issues with the line number, suggest rewording where applicable, for example. 2, identify any remaining elements that are unclear or would not be understood in your region. And 3, is there anything in the document preventing you from moving forward to implement the Limerick Framework for Action? The timeline is we have now draft 4 of the Limerick Framework for Action. We updated this based on the conference feedback. That's done. Our 2 independent consultants reviewed this and give us additional feedback. We turned that in to draft 5. So draft 5 is where we're at now, and this, we're sharing it with you guys to review in terms of finalization of the text. We need your feedback by the 22nd of August, if at all possible. And after that, we move into updating the final version, then really beginning with the how we begin the publication of this, the socialisation of it, the dissemination of it over the next few months, resulting with a launch and celebration of the Limerick Framework for Action in December. So these haven't yet started. So thank you all very much. There is a thank you note, my head stuck over it there, but thank you all very much. Really look forward to hearing your feedback, and do feel free to contact Aoife or Kathleen if you have any questions.